hard to believe that Yamaha first introduced this 998cc inline-4 open-class sports machine back in 1998. However, this is not a long-in-the-tooth story. No sir, far from it. Pretty much every 2 years since, Yamaha has continued to refine this showcase machine. How so, you ask? Well, by continually adding MotoGP trickle-down technology, like a cross-plane crank, complete with a regular firing order. Then there's the ride-by-wire technology, and electronic variable height inlet trumpets. Fast forward now to this version, and you can also add a new traction control system based on Yamaha's current MotoGP bike, replete with 6 settings and a new 3-level electronic ride mode that lets you choose your engine performance map based on the road conditions. Yamaha calls it a technical tour de force, and I have to agree. But you don't have to take my word for it. Here's longtime viewer Mark Russell with his full-on riding impression.
Well, Mark, this is the 50th anniversary GP edition R1. The color scheme is perfect. Back in the day when Wayne Rainey and Eddie Lawson and the boys were riding bikes that looked like this, could you ever imagine that someday we could own bikes like this?
Yeah, not at all, and especially not own them for the kind of price the bike is. It's less than $15,000. That doesn't even get you a functional car, and it gets you the fastest super bike on the road.
It's pretty shocking, the performance of this bike. I would have to say that engine is certainly, you better be awake.
Yeah, oh yeah. It's powerful everywhere. I will say it didn't really enjoy trolling around town at low RPM, but other than that, it was smooth and torquey and competent anywhere you went with it.
Now, you were pointing out to me that you did a little bit of research on the firing order and on the crank pin setup, and you said as a result, the motor does feel a little different. I didn't notice that, but you did.
Yeah, I did. It's noticeable. As I said, riding around town, it's not as smooth as I thought it was going to be, and I think that's just because it's a high-strung bike and it's not for trolling city streets. But everywhere else, the motor pulled really smoothly from whatever RPM, whatever throttle opening. It just delivered what you asked for in a really smooth and seamless way.
Yeah.
The other thing about that is the exhaust note sounds a little different than a typical across the frame 4-cylinder.
Now maybe that's what we're talking about when they talk about the firing order and the crank pin setup. So you said it sort of sounds just a little more snarly, a little lumpier.
Yeah, and I know that Yamaha claims it sounds like the MotoGP bike that Ben Spies is riding right now, which would be a snarly, crazy beast. And this does it simulates that sound, and it sounds a little different from everybody else's across the frame 4.
So what did you think? Did you like the power? Did you like cracking the throttle?
Oh, it was awesome. You know, cracking the throttle, that's the other thing about the smooth power delivery. It has traction control, which I was able to use, and when you crack the throttle, you don't get this violent tank slapping you in the face out of control. It just accelerates like a beast. But smoothly.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you like the way it stopped?
There's a ton of brake. They're gigantic 6-piston calipers, I think, something like that, or 3-piston, whatever. They're big, and it can haul it down from any pace, and it lifts the back wheel off the ground if that's your intent. It's pretty controllable and strong.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a fairly new bike. Did you find the shifting was okay? The clutch, it's a cable actuated clutch. It's not adjustable in the lever. Was it light enough for you in terms of shifting, downshifting?
Frankly, I didn't use it while we were moving. I used it to get going. It upshifts without the clutch without any trouble whatsoever. And it downshifts without the clutch as long as you're actually braking. If you need to change down a gear while you're trolling in town, you would use the clutch, which was easy to do. But for riding briskly, you don't really need it. It shifts smoothly up and down.
What did you think of the riding position? I have a hard time asking people about that when we're talking about, you know, fairly hard-edged sport bikes. I mean, it's going to be radical. What did you think?
It's what you'd expect for a sport bike. I didn't find it uncomfortable. This is not the smallest 1000cc sport bike now, so I didn't find it as crunched up as could be. It's not like my elbows were in around my waist or my heels were up on my butt. There's enough room on the bike. There's enough room to move around. Seat's reasonably comfortable.
Yeah.
I could ride a distance in it. It wasn't hardcore.
Yeah. Now the front fork, you mentioned to me that you wanted to touch upon the rake. It's quite steep. Did you notice a difference with that?
Well, it's pretty steep. I think it's 24 degrees, and it's a really big, sturdy fork. And what that allows is a change of direction pretty much at any speed with a little push on the bar. And the fork is so strong and the rake so steep that it'll just flick back and forth based on what you want. I really think you more think you're going to go that direction and off you go. It's not ponderous or anything. It's instant.
Fit, finish. You've seen a lot of sport bikes over the years. What did you think of this one?
It's nicely put together. I give them extra marks for the retro, cool Yamaha racing livery. I really like that. It just reminds me, as you said, back in the day of Wayne Rainey and Eddie Lawson and all those great guys that we remember racing in Grand Prix. And this is the look. This is the way Yamahas are supposed to look.
Did anything disappoint you?
I wouldn't say disappointing, but I found around town trolling a trying experience, and maybe that's more of the type of bike it is. It's not intended for that.
Right.
Yeah, you can't make a racehorse walk around the barn.
Right.
You got to run it.
What really surprised you about the bike? What impressed you the most?
I think the power delivery and the smoothness of it is really strong and seamless.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
A lot at your right hand. So who would you recommend this bike for? Clearly, it's not for your beginner rider. We know that. But
no.
Who would appreciate this bike?
This would be for an experienced rider, and I would say somebody who had track experience, because really, to get everything this bike has to offer, you need to go to a track day and ride it there.
Right.
It's all well and fine to be speeding around on the highways in the countryside, but to really get what the bike has to offer, I think you need to ride it on a track. And it doesn't need to be racing, it can just be a club track day.
Right.
That requires an experienced rider, somebody who's had fast bikes and had some training at that type of work.
Well, Mark, looked like you had a lot of fun today.
Oh, it was great, thank you. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
You want to take it for another couple hours?
Yeah, maybe a couple of days.
Okay, thought so. Good job.